Hello everyone and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson-Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on this Monday evening. We're broadcasting as we always do from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. If you're joining us from our coverage that wrapped up 21 minutes ago on Starship Flight 11, welcome back. If this is your first launch with us today, welcome in. We're counting down towards the planned liftoff of the Kuiper Falcon 3 mission, the final planned booked flight of Amazon's Project Kuiper broadband internet satellites on board a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, we're just about 58 minutes away from the T0 liftoff from Space Launch Complex 40, with this Falcon 9 rocket flying on a northeasterly trajectory once it leaves the pad. As we're settling in here, I want to thank the 3,500 plus of you who are watching along with us live at this point in the countdown. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. It's a little bit hard to see given the lighting conditions, but it does appear as though SpaceX Falcon 9 booster is making its way up the bridge past this camera vantage point here, courtesy of our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images, joining us from down on Merritt Island. No rest for the weary as SpaceX continues its rapid launch pace, involving, of course, launch, landing, and refurbishment of its Falcon 9 boosters. You're seeing that in effect right here with the transport of this booster over to the Hangar X site here at the Kennedy Space Center, where it will be refurbished and turned around for future missions. We'll keep our eyes peeled with our cameras here at the press site and see if we catch another glimpse of this booster as it passes by the vehicle assembly building here at the KSC press site. As we're rolling into our coverage here of this Kuiper mission, want to thank our wonderful channel member community for being back in support of this upcoming launch. Big thanks to folks like Angela Cagle, Lady Blue NC, The Rocket Girl, Dale K, Mike D, and many, many others. Sue Straub, hello to you. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to our member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and, of course, the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. I also want to thank channel members and moderators Jeff Hansen and Rick Donner for being back with us yet again for our second live stream of the day. You can help make their job that much easier just by following the rules of the live chat. We ask that you post your message in English so that our mods can respond as appropriate. Also, that you hold off on delving into overt politics or religion and don't use all caps. Emojis are perfectly fine. We just ask that you don't create a huge block of them that takes up a large percentage of the chat space so that other people can see and read the messages that are being posted from others and themselves. And last but certainly not least, we ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated with, and we'll all get along swimmingly. Also, thanks to another one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, for helping to answer folks' questions in the live chat. Last little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings-on in the realm of space or spaceflight, feel free to use the YouTube Super Chat feature to get your comment or query elevated for discussion, or like Bill in Lauderdale, just offering a little support in our coverage tonight. Bill says, let's get the party started for the mods. Also want to thank Allison Stevens for a super chat, as well as Stephen Beard. Really appreciate that support at that level, Stephen. Thank you so much. Currently T-minus 53 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. It's been a busy night for our photography team here in Florida. While, of course, Starship is not launching from Florida just yet, we did get a really nice view of the ship upper stage as it was cruising to the south of the Florida Peninsula. If you're not following our photography team, you can find them at their handles here on X. Adam is at ABurnNYC, Michael MD Kane Jr., and John Pisani at John Pisani Photo. Also be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. You can also find us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook if you yourself are not on X. Thanks to channel member and moderator Jeff Hansen for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff says, go Cape, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Kuiper. Godspeed 1091. 1091 is the tail number for the Falcon booster that is launching this mission today. While boosters with newer tail numbers have flown more often, this is actually just the second flight for this particular booster, having previously been used to fly a previous batch of Kuiper satellites into low Earth orbit. That was on the KF-2 mission that launched back on August 11th. 24 more Kuiper sats getting ready to head up into low Earth orbit today. 45th Weather Squadron forecast a pretty good outlook for liftoff from the pad here. 95% favorable conditions. The booster recovery weather has been one of the watch items for this mission with today's launch window. It's listed as a moderate risk on a rubric of low to moderate to high as far as the potential risk criteria. So assuming things have calmed down a bit offshore from when the 45th Weather Squadron forecast this launch outlook, teams will progress towards a liftoff here in just about 50.5 minutes from now. Taking a look at the countdown timeline as we're getting ready to see this Falcon 9 rocket take off. SpaceX does its readiness poll electronically, so if it's in a good position, it can start this process a little bit ahead, but generally speaking, the go-ahead for the start of fueling is granted at the T-minus 38-minute mark. Once the green light is given, fueling of the Falcon 9 will start at T-minus 35 minutes with a loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen will begin flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. 30 minutes out, SpaceX will load a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage. Same will be true on the second stage a few minutes afterwards. That helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes is when second stage RP-1 loading wraps up. Then at T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, we'll see the strong back chill down process get underway. This is when SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad prior to loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage. We'll see this visually manifest here at pad 40 as the so-called big vent, beginning at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. It's a good visual indication that things are moving along on track and as expected. After that roughly 4-minute vent wraps up, second stage lock load will begin at the 16-minute mark. Moving right along, T-minus 7 minutes is when the engine chill sequence begins. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the booster from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes before flight, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retraction sequence. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, will pull back about a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it stays in that position until liftoff. Then at that point, it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. 3 minutes before takeoff, the first stage LOX tank is full. Same was true on the second stage about a minute afterwards. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as the call is given for the Falcon 9 to enter into its automated startup. At that point, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch call at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will begin for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, currently targeting 9:58 p.m. Eastern, 01:58 UTC for our friends around the world, or in just about 47 minutes from now. Now T-minus 45 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. As I mentioned, the Falcon booster that is launching this mission is flying just for a second time, so far from being an entrant on our frequent flyer list of the Falcon boosters. Here's a rundown of where things currently stand for the Falcon fleet's most often flown first stages. You'll note that the booster that's flying today, B1091, also does not have the SpaceX lettering nor the American flag of the Falcon 9 iconography on the side of the booster, and that's because this particular first stage is destined to be a Falcon Heavy core at some point in the future, but is being flown the interim to get a few reps under its belt before it's turned over into the Falcon Heavy configuration. Here's a look at the bar chart of SpaceX missions so far this year as compared to years past. They're looking to accomplish launch number 128 with their Falcon fleet, coming up here in just about 44 minutes. Time now T minus 40 minutes, 13 seconds and counting. We're just a couple minutes away from the SpaceX launch director making the call on the start of prop load. Time now T minus 36 minutes, 14 seconds and counting. The SpaceX launch director should have made the call on the start of prop load, assuming things are continuing to move along on track with this Kuiper mission, and fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket set to begin now in less than 1 minute. Time now T minus 33 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. We should start to see some signs of fueling here in the next minute and a half as the super cold densified liquid oxygen begins or continues to flow on board the rocket's first stage. And it's a little bit hard to see given the heat distortion between our camera and the rocket tonight, but it does look like we're starting to see a little bit of vapor there off the right-hand side of the rocket, just past the edge of the crew access tower. That vapor would be a good indication that SpaceX is in fact fueling its Falcon 9 rocket with the intent to launch at 9:58 p.m. Eastern, 01:58 UTC for our friends around the world. Time now T minus 25 minutes, 46 seconds and counting. If you're just now joining us, you're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the Kuiper Falcon 3 mission, the upcoming launch of 24 of Amazon's Project Kuiper broadband internet satellites into low Earth orbit. This will be the 6th flight carrying Kuiper satellites into LEO, with 3 having been completed by United Launch Alliance using its Atlas V rocket. 2 from SpaceX so far, with this being the 3rd and final launch that Amazon booked on board a Falcon 9. With a good deployment of the satellites on board this rocket, Kuiper will have 153 satellites in low Earth orbit. The Falcon 9 rocket is designed to deploy these satellites at about 289 miles or 465 kilometers in altitude. The Project Kuiper team will then take things over from there. They have their Mission Operations Center in Redmond, Washington. It's where the Kuipers are produced. Also, of course, as we were talking about in our last live stream, that's where SpaceX manufactures its Starlink satellites as well. These Kuiper satellites will be raised to an altitude of 392 miles or 630 kilometers, where they will be brought into the full operational Kuiper constellation. ULA's next launch is going to be the Viasat 3 F2 or Flight 2 mission. That's coming up no earlier than the end of this month. We believe next on the docket will be another national security payload on board its Vulcan rocket, the USSF-87 mission. That would be followed, as far as we're aware, by the first Vulcan Kuiper mission. And the Vulcan rocket is capable of launching up to 45 of Amazon's Project Kuiper satellites in one go. Here's a look at the 24 Kuiper satellites as they were departing Amazon's payload processing facility, which is located at the former shuttle landing facility, now the launch and landing facility, which is managed by Space Florida. Amazon says it has dozens of its Kuiper satellites that are going through the processing work needed pre-launch there at its payload processing facility ahead of future flights. Of course, Amazon launches on board the Atlas V rocket as well as ULA's Vulcan. It has 38 missions booked on board the Vulcan rocket. 12 baseline using New Glenn with an option to add an additional 15 New Glenn Kuiper launches. And then 18 missions on the Ariane 6 rocket from Arianespace. While the first launch of Kuiper satellites on Vulcan is expected later this year, it's a little less clear when Arianespace and Blue Origin are going to start to launch Kuiper satellites for Amazon. Potentially as soon as the middle of next year for New Glenn, and TBD for the Ariane 6 rocket. Of course, next up for New Glenn is a NASA mission sending up a pair of spacecraft nicknamed Blue and Gold. Those are part of the Escapade mission heading off to Mars. They're designed to learn more about how Mars lost its atmosphere. We'll, of course, have much more to say about the Escapade mission as we get closer to that launch. But for now, we're at T-minus 20 minutes and 30 seconds away from this Falcon 9 departing, which means we're coming up on the start of the so-called big vent here in just a few seconds. And there you see the big vent just now getting underway as SpaceX chills the feed lines there at the pad prior to second stage liquid oxygen load. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the Kuiper Falcon 3 mission. Currently T-minus 18 minutes and counting as the big vent rolls on. Got a couple of minutes left before this vent wraps up. I want to thank a few folks in our live chat for their support this evening. Thanks to channel member and moderator Astro Joe, who's marking 39 months with us as a channel member at the pad leader level. Appreciate the ongoing support, Astro Joe, who says, "Woohoo! What a great day for spaceflight." Certainly agree to that. Also, thanks to Chuck Close, another one of our wonderful channel members, for a very generous $25 super chat. Thank you, Chuck, for supporting us at that level. Also want to thank the more than 4,500 of you who are watching along with us live at this point in the countdown. If you haven't already, you could do us a big ol' favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream. That'll allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage with the remaining about 17 minutes on the count. Now T-minus 15 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. As you can see, the big vent has wrapped up, and SpaceX is now loading liquid oxygen on board its rocket's upper stage. I want to thank Jim Ebo for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Jim, who says, let's light this candle. And a thanks as well to the Rocket Girl, marking 14 months with us as a channel member at the mission specialist level, who says, great to be here with the Spaceflight Now family. School makes me miss many launches, so I am very grateful for the ones that I get to watch live. Thank you, Will, and the Spaceflight Now team for the incredible work. Well, thank you for the kind words, Rocket Girl. And sorry the studies are pulling away from all the rocketry happening here and far, but certainly appreciate whenever you are able to stop by, and thanks for your support as a channel member. Really appreciate it. Today's Falcon 9 rocket launch, as we are just about 14 minutes away from that, is the 545th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date, and this will be the 128th Falcon 9 launch of the year so far. So before we go ahead and see this rocket fly, let's talk a little bit about SpaceX's current workhorse vehicle. Falcon 9 stands at 70 meters or 229 feet in height. It has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. The majority of that is made up by the rocket's booster, the bottom two-thirds of the launch vehicle. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, this is just the second flight for B-1091. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin engines, which burn a rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Around the engine section are black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Today, SpaceX is using the vessel called a shortfall of gravitas. For those of you who are tracking this mission throughout its various delays, you'll note that originally they were planning on using the drone ship called just read the instructions, but that has changed, and now they're using a shortfall of gravitas. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In that image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the vehicle's second stage. And at first stage, main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until the point of stage separation. Speaking of that upper stage, the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces 220,500 pounds of thrust at its ignition. It'll be fired twice on today's flight to place the 24 Kuiper satellites into their intended orbit. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings. Fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The two halves will be recovered a little bit further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. Following atmospheric reentry, they will make their final splashdown under the support of steerable parachutes. Just under 11 minutes to go before the flight of Kuiper Falcon 3. Also, as SpaceX prepares to launch its Falcon 9 from Pad 40 in just about 10 minutes. Of course, we wish well to all of the launch providers here at the Cape or further flung, and best of luck to the folks at Rocket Lab for their upcoming launch from down in New Zealand. On deck is their Electron launch with a mission called Owl New World, another synthetic aperture radar or a SAR satellite for Japan-based satellite data and analytics company Synspective. This will be their 7th Strix satellite launched on board of an Electron rocket. Just as a quick bit of housekeeping here, the SpaceX pad views should have started about 4 minutes or so ago, and for some reason SpaceX has not begun its stream. Actually, stand by. Unclear as to why, but it appears as though SpaceX is having some issue with its own live stream. We'll, of course, bring in pad level views and mission audio if and when they become available. Time now T-minus 7 minutes, 33 seconds and counting. We are seeing some vapor on the second stage, so as far as we can tell at this point, SpaceX has not scrubbed the launch. They're still continuing to fuel the Falcon 9 rocket. This may just be a technical streaming issue on their end, which is why we're not seeing pad level views of the rocket right now. Thankfully, though, we have our ace photographer, Adam Bernstein, with camera trained on the Falcon 9, so we'll bring you views of at least liftoff through separation, and we'll track the upper stage as long as possible. And hopefully we will get those onboard camera views from SpaceX, assuming they are able to begin their live stream here in the next several minutes. Just under 6 minutes and 30 seconds now. At this point, the engine chill sequence is underway. SpaceX flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. Six minutes out. This point of the countdown, the first stage RP1 loading should be complete. Again, normally we would be bringing you pad level views along with available mission audio from SpaceX. However, they have not started their typical pre-launch broadcast, which was scheduled to start about 15 to 10 minutes ahead of liftoff and is at this point in time not begun. So they appear to be having some technical broadcast issues following a nominal Starship stream. In the meantime, I want to welcome in new channel member Christopher Peck, joining us with mission channel membership at the mission specialist level. Also, welcome to Sherilyn Mundell and FVT, both joining us at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard to the both of you. And big thanks to channel member Rocket Lady Elizabeth for a very generous $20 super chat. One of our wonderful channel members. Thank you, Elizabeth. Good to see you tonight. Just under 4.5 minutes now. At this point, the tank should be pressurizing for the start of the strong back retraction. At this point, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings should be opening up, and the transporter erector reclining away from the Falcon 9 rocket there at the pad. It's a little bit hard to see from our vantage point from here at the press site of the retraction of the strong back, but you can just barely make it out if you look at the crew access tower. You just barely make it out peeking to the right if you look parallel to the fairing half close to the right-hand side of the screen. We're just under 3 minutes now to the planned departure of this Falcon 9 rocket. At this point, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Same will be true on the second stage in less than a minute. Again, we are at this point not getting pad level views or any kind of broadcast from SpaceX. They seem to still be having technical issues on their end. If those are resolved in time, of course, we will bring those live views to you following liftoff, as we always do. Just under 2 minutes now. You're seeing the ground gas closeouts as SpaceX releases the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there at the pad. 15 seconds. And here we go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Kuiper Falcon 3 mission, the final flight of Kuiper satellites on board a SpaceX Falcon 9. The rocket has cleared the tower and offering a nice reflection in the turn basin. Now a little more than a minute, 17 seconds into flight. Rocket has passed through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Coming up to MVAC chill, the thermal conditioning of the Merlin vacuum engine on the rocket's upper stage. Should be happening right about now. Now a little more than 2 minutes into flight, we're coming up to a few events in fairly rapid succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. The stage separation will occur shortly thereafter, followed by the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine. Fairings will be jettisoned about 3.5 minutes into this mission. We're just a few seconds away from MECO. MECO. Stage separation. We should have second stage engine start. And we've got SES-1 as well. As you can see, we've got access back to the, or now, I should say, to the SpaceX broadcast, although the stream quality is subpar from what we normally see from SpaceX for whatever reason. But we are getting onboard camera views from the booster stage, as has been the case with previous Kuiper missions. Amazon has once again apparently requested that no upper stage camera views be shown. We're coming up on fairing jettison here in just a moment. And there you see the payload fairings have been jettisoned. They'll make their way back down and splash a little bit further down range from where the booster is set to touch down on the drone ship called a shortfall of gravitas. Bit of tricky tracking tonight, but we've still got views of that upper stage Merlin engine. Again, the stream is coming through from SpaceX at a lower quality for some reason, so we apologize for the fuzziness of the text there on your screen. This is a tracking view of the upper stage Merlin vacuum engine from our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs. A little more than 5 minutes into the flight so far, coming up our next milestone that we're watching out for. It's the start of the first stage entry burn, where SpaceX will use 3 out of the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the booster to begin to slow that part of the rocket down considerably. Now about 6 minutes into flight, we're coming up on the start of the first stage entry burn here in a few seconds. Entry burn should be underway in real time. Looks like Adam's got it. Well done, Adam. This burn lasts less than 30 seconds in total. Coming in on a bit of a delay, we see the onboard camera view of the entry burn. And with the landing burn, or excuse me, the entry burn behind them, SpaceX now turns to the start of the landing burn, which is set to begin at about T plus 7 minutes and 48 seconds. Given that the landing burn happens far enough away and low enough to the horizon, we won't be able to see it with our tracking cameras, so we'll be entirely reliant on the SpaceX onboard camera views tonight for this part of the mission. Here's the start of the landing burn. And it looks like a good landing of B-1091. And once again, at the likely request of Amazon, there will not be upper stage views shown of the Falcon 9 rocket, as Amazon does not want to disclose visuals of its Kuiper satellites at this juncture in their development and deployment of their constellation. You can see telemetry of the upper stage as it continues on its climb uphill, approaching 9 minutes into flight from the SpaceX timeline of things. At this point in the mission, the Falcon 9's upper stage, assuming it entered into that nominal coast phase, will coast until about T plus 52 minutes and 50 seconds. There will be a brief 3-second burn to help put the upper stage on the correct trajectory to deploy the Kuiper satellites beginning at about T plus 56 minutes and 25 seconds, with the deployment sequence ending at T plus 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 6 seconds post liftoff. And with a good liftoff and a good landing of the first stage booster, we're about to turn to our mission stats as they currently stand. This was the second flight of Falcon 9 booster B1091. That was SpaceX's 545th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 128th of the year so far. This was SpaceX's 480th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was their 166th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 283rd orbital flight from Pad 40 from SpaceX, and the 338th overall orbital flight from this launch site. Here's a look at the bar chart representation of Falcon launches year over year. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 127th good landing on the drone ship called a short fall of gravitas. Actually, the 128th landing on a short fall of gravitas. Still the 421st SpaceX drone ship landing and the 517th overall booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 85th orbital launch from Florida, the 135th from U.S. soil, the 147th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 230th orbital launch attempt around the globe. There have been 5 orbital failures so far this year, and here is where our pie chart now currently stands. And with all that, with the successful flight of Starship Flight 11 and now Amazon Kuiper KF-03 well on its way to hopefully a successful deployment here in a little more than 50 minutes from now, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up on this very busy double launch day today, as we do have yet another orbital launch to cover from California tomorrow. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out the digital door. Want to thank a few more folks in the live chat. Thanks to channel member MedTech for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, MedTech, who says, thanks for the great coverage tonight. Appreciate the kind words. William Foss with a $5 super chat saying this is because of Team Astro. Thank you, Spaceflight Now. Well, thank you, Team Astro. And finally, thank you to Zachariah for a $2 super chat saying thanks for what you do. Thank you, Zachariah, for your support of what we do here at Spaceflight Now. Thanks as well to our moderators in the chat, to Rick Donner, Astro Joe, and Jeff Hansen for helping us out with this live stream. Thanks as well to channel member Cumulus Granatus for answering folks' questions in the chat throughout the broadcast. Big thanks to our photographers, to Adam, Michael, and John, who have been working from here at the Cape and far-flung across Central Florida to capture various views of the Starship launch and this Falcon 9 rocket flight as well. Be sure to follow them at their handles here on X if you're not already. Thanks as well to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast, overcoming quite a bit of jet lag as well. Also thanks to John Pisani for helping out on the technical front as well. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from, whether you're here in Florida or elsewhere around the globe. We certainly appreciate your time and attention with this launch coverage as well as Starship Flight 11. One last super chat to Elizabeth Short. Thank you so much. And that will be a wrap for us tonight, folks. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.